Hi, welcome to the Fantasy Football Profits podcast channel on YouTube. We're really excited to bring to you our first podcast, actually. I'm Christian Skudovic here with Rob. Today we're going to be talking about 5 booms and 5 busts. Do you have anything to say before we start?
Well, I'm excited. It seems, June would seem to be too early, right, to talk fantasy football. But I'll tell you what, if you want to get ahead of your competition, you want to win this year, you can never talk about and you can never look at fantasy football too early. So I'm excited to get going. I'm excited to talk about the boom and bust players of 2017, the 5 that we have from each side. And so, Christian, let's start with you. Give me your first bust of 2017.
All right, here's a polarizing player people have been really excited about. Running back Marshawn Lynch. I'm going to call him a major bust this season. I don't expect pretty much anything from him. A lot of people are taking him in the first round, and I don't think that could be a bigger mistake. I think it's just a huge, poor decision. He's 31 years old, and he is past his prime. He's just never going to be the running back he was. Even if he's okay or even good, he won't be the guy that we remember him as. So let's get that out of the way. Second of all, he's always been the man. He's always been the #1 guy. He's always gotten all the carries and all the stats on the roster. And even if he comes out this year and he's good, he's not going to be that for Oakland. They have DeAndre Washington and Jalen Richards, who last year combined for 170 attempts, 661 yards, and 4 touchdowns. That's a lot of stats to take away from Marshawn Lynch, and he's not used to that sort of kind of hit to his numbers. Finally, research done recently found that running backs after they turn age 31 score 70% less fantasy points. And let's not forget that he just took a year off of playing football. But finally, the biggest and most important and scary piece about why I think he's going to be a bust this year is the last year he played in 2015, he really fell off, averaging only 3.8 yards per carry, 417 yards, and 3 touchdowns, and finished the season by getting injured and couldn't play the rest of the year and then decided to retire. A lot of people are excited that he had a year off and didn't take as many hits, but I just don't think that he can do it. How about you, Rob? What's your first bust?
Right, my first bust of the year. Well, here's the thing. Before I get to my first bust, I want to clarify something, that ultimately what makes a pick necessarily a boom or bust is not just how well they perform, but ultimately where you get them in the draft. For example, if I take Odell Beckham Jr. in the first round and he finishes with 1,000 yards and 8 TDs, that's an okay season. That's going to be a real disappointment for me. That's going to be a bust in my mind. And yet if I take that same stats from a wide receiver in the 10th round, he ends up with 1,000 yards and 8 TDs, that's a successful pick. And so once again, it's not just the numbers they put up, but where you take them. For that reason, my #1 bust is Matt Ryan. Had a great year last year. I got to give him all the credit. He surprised me. He surprised a lot of people. In fact, I want to clarify this. I'm sure that he'll have a decent season. I wouldn't be all that surprised if he ends up with 25 to 28 touchdown passes. But once again, why is he a bust? Well, he's a bust because the inevitable first-round pick that many foolish and overzealous owners are going to waste on him. Now, there's 2 reasons why that's a wasted pick. One, you never take a quarterback in the first round. Hear me clearly. If all you get today is this one thing, please listen to me. Don't take a quarterback in your first round. There's no need to do it. How many guys got busted last year with Cam Newton in the first round? What a wasted pick. Here's why it's a wasted pick. Well, first of all, the NFL has become a passer-friendly league. They have more spread formations. They run shotgun formations. Tight ends now are not just used for blocking and occasional catch. They're weapons. More and more quarterbacks are putting up more yards and more TDs. Now, according to the law of supply and demand, more quarterbacks that are producing pushes down the value of quarterbacks at this point. I'll give you an example. It used to be that 30 touchdown passes was kind of the gold standard of quarterbacks. If you reach 30 touchdown passes, you were automatically in the conversation for MVP. Back in 1994, 3 quarterbacks reached that: Dan Marino, Brett Favre, and Steve Young. Okay? Now compare that to 2015. 2015, there was 11 quarterbacks that threw for 30 touchdown passes, an additional 2 that had 29, and 3 more quarterbacks that, had they not got injured, were on pace for 30 touchdown passes. Once again, you don't need to take a quarterback in the first round. Don't make that mistake. Don't take this guy in the first round. And here's the other reason why I think he's going to be a bust this year. And the reason why I think that last year was an aberration for him statistically. That was the first time that Matt Ryan had a quarterback rating over 100. It was only the second time he had over 30 touchdown passes. And when you consider the fact that he used to throw to Roddy White, Tony Gonzalez, and Julio Jones, besides last year, he's routinely underachieved. Now add to that the fact that he just lost offensive coordinator and quarterback guru Kyle Shanahan, who left for the 49ers. And one more final thing to kind of put the nail in the coffin in terms of him being a bust. Freeman and Coleman are really good running backs. He doesn't need to throw for 300 yards for them to win. Once again, they can rely on their running game at this point and their young, improving defense to win games. So once again, stay away from Matt Ryan. He's going to be my bust for this year. Christian, you're up for the first boom.
All right, first boom. My first boom of the season is a player that I don't even think is all that talented. I believe he has some talent, he's got some skill, but for me, it's more about quantity. And Willie Snead is going to get a high quantity, a high volume of catches this year. So in the last 2 seasons he's been in the NFL, he has averaged each season 103 targets, 937 yards, 3.5 touchdowns, and 70 catches. He's averaged that in the last 2 years. That's unbelievable considering, and most people don't know this, he is the 3rd string wide receiver for the New Orleans Saints. Now in this offseason, Brandon Cooks has left, making Michael Thomas the number 1, and Willie Snead becomes the number 2. This will be his first chance to be the number 2 target. I think he's going to see a lot more throws his way, especially in the end zone. Cooks left behind 117 targets, 8 touchdowns, 78 catches, and 1,173 yards. I'm not saying Willie Snead's going to come in and take all of those stats and be the next number 1 wideout there, but he's going to get some of those. They can't all go to Michael Thomas, and they can't all go to Ted Ginn Jr. So I think he's going to have a much improved year. And finally, you can trust that the New Orleans Saints are going to throw the ball as much as they did last year. Their defense is as bad as it ever has been, as bad as it was last year, and they're going to be throwing late in games, Hail Marys in the second half. They're going to be doing anything that they can to try to win. So expect lots of garbage time points from him. There's my first boom of the year.
So my first boom. So who is my first boom? Well, I'll tell you what. I'm not a big fan of this guy, honestly. I don't think he's a great quarterback per se, but I believe he's going to have a very good year. I think he's a boom player. I think he's somebody you could get late in the draft, maybe between the 10th and 12th round, and you can load up on your bench while you wait to take your starting quarterback. And here's my guy, Eli Manning. He's going to have a good year. Here's a number of reasons why. One, they never really addressed the running back situation in the offseason. As of now, it's looking at Shane Green and Perkins. Now, they may develop Perkins as young. He may develop into a great young running back. But right now, they don't have that workhorse, that bell cow they can rely on to take pressure off of him. Also, 3 times he has reached 30 touchdown passes. Once again, that's more than Matt Ryan. And 2 of those 3 years were from 2 of those 3 30 touchdown passes from 2 out of the last 3 years. And he did this with lesser weapons. Once again, he's done it before 3 times, but he had lesser weapons this year. To me, and this is what I love about his situation, is they added Brandon Marshall. Now, Brandon Marshall, by a lot of people, you may not like him, you may think he's loud, you may think he's a character. The bottom line, Brandon Marshall is a great wide receiver. He's underrated, undervalued. Take a look at this. He's been in the NFL 11 seasons. 8 of those, he's had 1,000 receiving yards. 6 of those seasons, he had over 100 catches. He should be considered a future Hall of Famer. Now you take and you add him with Odell Beckham Jr. and a very talented young Shepherd. This is hands down, in my opinion, the best wide receiver core in football right now. Eli can easily top his career best 35 touchdown passes this year. Once again, let him slip, take him late. He's going to have a good year. Eli Manning. So it's back to you now, Christian, for your next bust.
All right, bust number 2. This was an easy bust for me. I had no doubt in my mind. In fact, when I started looking at busts, this is the first guy I looked at. Wide receiver for the New England Patriots, Brandon Cooks. People are really excited about him because he's a very talented wide receiver, but he's not going to do what he did last year. Last year, he got 117 targets, and he's just not going to get that in New England. They simply have too many mouths to feed. They have Rob Gronkowski, Julian Edelman, Chris Hogan. They just added Dwayne Allen, Mike Gillislee, and they're a team that they even enjoy running the ball, especially in the red zone. They're fine playing defense. They don't need to run up the score on you. Tom Brady spreads the ball out more than any quarterback in the NFL. Brandon Cooks may be an unbelievably talented wide receiver, but to expect him to get the numbers he got last year is completely foolish. Another thing to note, and another reason he won't get the same numbers he had last year, 1,098 of his yards came in 13 games. Those 13 games, they either were 7 losses and 5 wins in which the game came down to under 7 points, meaning they were garbage time points. They were either made a fourth quarter comeback drive to win it, or they lost it and were spending the fourth quarter trying to drive and failed. Compared to the Patriots, only 3. That's 10 games of garbage time stats he will not get this year. So my second and most confident bust is Brandon Cooks.
Brandon Cooks, yeah. Big free season acquisition for New England. Certainly going to help them as a team, but will he be a great fantasy player? And that's what people forget. You know, there's a big difference between fantasy football and regular football. And they may have another great year. They may win another Super Bowl. He may become a key component in that. Doesn't necessarily make him a great fantasy football player. So here's my second bust. Now, this one's tough for me. I like this guy. Last year, running back. Here's his stats from last year. 1,313 yards. He had 6 TDs. He had 5.2 yards per carry. I mean, that's a great season for a running back, especially when you consider he was a rookie. And here's my second bust. And I hate to say this, but Jordan Howard. Now, here's why I think the guy's going to be a bust. First of all, I love the guy. I think he's had a great NFL career. But right now, the bottom line is Chicago is a mess. When you look at their quarterback situation, Mike Glennon was brought in to be the guy. Their best wide receiver is a converted quarterback. They lost Alshon Jeffrey. The bottom line is they're in a rebuilding year. And teams know that, defenses know that. If I was a defensive coordinator, Christian, if you were a defensive coordinator and you played Chicago, what would you be doing?
I'm going to stack the box and we're going to shut Jordan Howard down.
And that's exactly what I think is going to happen this year. And you know what that reminds me of last year? Another guy who had a great rookie season, and last year he crushed fantasy owners. He had a brutal season. That was Todd Gurley. I think that Jordan Howard becomes this year's Todd Gurley. I think another thing that's going to hurt his stats this year and why he's going to be a bust is I think Chicago, because they're rebuilding, they're not a great team, will be playing from behind, hence neutralizing the ground game and forcing them to throw. What I would do if I was you, because once again I think he's going to be a great NFL player, just not this year, you could wait 6 to 8 games in the season when people are losing interest and owners are panicking, and if you're in a keeper league, trade for the guy, stash him, and wait till 2018, because once again I think he's going to be a great player. It's just not happening this year. Christian, you're up.
All right, this is for my number 2 boom player. Okay, so this guy is a guy who, kind of like the last boom player that I had, I don't know if he's the most talented guy out there. Though he's got talent and he's shown it. Dwayne Allen, tight end for the New England Patriots. For me, it's about the situation. Now, he is a number 2 tight end, and I did just tell you with Brandon Cooks about how much talent is on that team. But something that you have to remember is that Rob Gronkowski cannot stay on the field. I don't think that he can make it through this season healthy. I'm going to say that he will get hurt. He will miss a few games, and some of the games that he won't miss, he'll be a little bit banged up and he won't be 100%, and they'll be working him back into it or whatever it might be. But he's just not going to be able to stick around and be that guy like he used to be. In fact, the last time that Rob Gronkowski was healthy for a whole season was all the way back in 2011. That's insane. I mean, he has had a horrible record with his health. I believe Dwayne Allen can explode, first of all, because Bennett. In the 8 games that Rob Gronkowski missed last year, Bennett really capitalized, getting 701 yards and 7 touchdowns. That's insane. Finally, I do see some talent in Dwayne Allen. Last year, he was only given 52 targets, but he made the absolute most out of it, receiving for 406 yards and 6 touchdowns. I think if he is given more volume and more opportunities, he can be a star, especially for a Patriots team that loves to target tight ends. All right, you're up. Who's your number 2 boom?
My second boom player. Well, I'm going to stay with the New York Giants right now. My second boom player is a guy that I already mentioned. That's Brandon Marshall. Now, right now in leagues, depending upon what you look at, he's taken about between the 35th and the 40th wide receiver taken off the board. I love this guy. Now, once again, he's a character. He may not be a character guy, maybe injured chemistry, but as far as fantasy football goes, this guy is as good as it gets. He's so underrated. Once again, 8 seasons with over 1,000 yards, 6 seasons with over 100 catches, 3 seasons or 4 seasons he's had double-digit touchdowns. He should be considered a Hall of Famer. Then you take a look at, once again, his numbers. Once again, I said 8 seasons with over 1,000 yards. The 3 years that he didn't topple 1,000 yards, one, he was a rookie. The second one, he missed 3.5 games because of injuries, and he was on pace to have 1,000 yards. And then last year, he didn't reach 1,000 yards. And you know what? Last year, he plays for a Jets team that was a mess. They had Fitzgerald, Petty, Geno Smith. The whole thing was a nightmare. And so once again, he's as safe and as good as they get. Brandon Marshall with a good quarterback. And plus, by the way, if you're a defensive coordinator, who are you going to double team? Brandon Marshall for a big season. I say he will safely get 80 catches, 1,200 yards, and 10 TDs. I think that's safe. Once again, he's good as it gets, and he's only 33, so he's still got some years left in the tank. He's my number 2 boom pick.
All right, I believe I'm up now for my number 3 bust pick, and here's a guy that I really like. I think he's really talented. I think he's a great player. He's had a great career. Unfortunately, I just don't see him doing it this year. Delanie Walker. I'm not going to hate on the guy. He's a good tight end. He is really a good tight end. But by the time the season starts, he'll be 33 years old. And he's not going to reach the numbers that he used to reach. He's not in his prime anymore, and he's really moving downhill. I think we're going to see a fast decline simply due to age. But also because some of the seasons he had that were great in 2015 when he had 1,000 yards, they needed him to do that. They had no talent there. They had no weapons. They didn't have any good wideouts or another good tight end or running backs. They simply needed him to be kind of Superman for them and save the day. They don't need that anymore. They have DeMarco Murray, Derrick Henry. They just got Eric Decker and Corey Davis. I think we're going to see his numbers severely diminish from his 102 targets he got last year. Finally, last year he got a record 7 touchdowns. And you know what? That's a good peak for him. 7 touchdowns, I mean, I'd be pretty happy with that in a season. But it's just that it's a peak. And we're going to see him come down from that peak and see him get some regression. You can't stay at your peak for more than one season. That's why it's called a peak. So I think we can really expect him to take a huge step down due to age and opportunity.
Right, age and opportunity. You're right, and those are key. We actually wrote an article that talks about that a little bit. And if you go to our Fantasy Football Profits site, it's called Fantasy Football Profits with an S.com. And on there's an article, and we talk about 3 things that you can use to evaluate or determine effectiveness of a fantasy player, and they are talent, opportunity, and trend. And so that's really important. One, you got to have the talent, you got to have the opportunity. That's vitally important. So now to my bust. My 3rd bust is Mark Ingram. Now I feel bad for this guy. You know the old saying, I was a bridesmaid but never a bride? It's kind of how I feel for this poor guy right here. You know, he came in the league, first couple years, he kind of struggled. He was drafted out of Alabama. Everybody had high hopes for him. The first 2 years, he was, really an average running back and very much disappointed. But in his 3rd, he really started to come into his own. His yards per carry went up, and he continued to peak. About 2 years ago, he developed into a good pass-catching running back. And last year, for the first time, he broke 1,000 yards, had 5.1 yards per carry. He seemed poised to become a top 10 running back, to be in that conversation of elite running backs in the league. Love the guy. And then what happened in the offseason?
They signed Adrian Peterson.
Adrian Peterson.
There's no better way to show lack of faith in your running back than to sign a new one.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's a lack of faith in him or what it is, if it's opportunity, I'm not really sure. And I think at this point, Adrian Peterson's not going to be the back of old. In fact, I don't expect he's going to even get near 1,000 yards, Adrian. But he's going to do just enough to take away value from Ingram to the point when you can't consider him, I would say maybe a top 20 running back, maybe top 15 if you push it a little bit. Once again, disappointing for the guy. I think he could be a great running back, but I don't see him as a great year. I call him a bust this year. That's my number 3 bust, Mark Ingram.
All right, now I'm up for my number 3 boom, and I couldn't be more excited about this guy, Mike Gillislee, running back of the New England Patriots. Once I found out he was going there, I've been so ecstatic about that. I think he's going to have an explosive year. We got a lot of reasons to be excited about this. First of all, what Mike Gillislee has proven himself so far. In the last 2 seasons, he has averaged 5.7 yards per carry in each season. He's gotten 844 yards and 11 touchdowns and only 148 carries the last 2 years. Those are really good numbers on an offense in Buffalo Bills that are just okay. So he's put up some phenomenal numbers. It just hasn't had the chance because of how great LeSean McCoy is. I think he will come in, and I think that they went out free agency and they got him to replace LeGarrette Blount. I think they were very intentional and they knew they needed to replace him. And here's what they are replacing. LeGarrette Blount's 299 carries. If Mike Gillislee can get even near that number, he's going to have a phenomenal season. Especially when you consider the fact that LeGarrette Blount only averaged 3.9 yards per carry. So their expectations clearly aren't too high. I think if Mike Gillislee can come in and do what we know he can do, I think he's going to easily get that many carries. Finally, he got 11 touchdowns in the last 2 seasons off of only 148 carries, but off of only 39 red zone carries. That's not that much at all, considering Blount last year got 142 red zone carries. If Mike Gillislee got 142 red zone carries, I think he could have an unbelievable season. I don't think that there's another way I could be more excited about him right now. I think he's going to be explosive, and I think you're going to be able to take him even late, too. He's not going to be a first, second, or third round pick.
Sounds like you have a man crush on this guy.
Just a little bit.
And so that's your guy. Well, you know what? I like him too, and I'll actually talk about him in a little bit. But here's my number 3 boom guy, and a guy that I've always liked in the league, even though I'm a Vikings fan and he's done his damage before. But the guy that I like is Eddie Lacy. Now, I know they had some struggles. I know there's some concerns out there, but I love the guy. From the year that he came in as a rookie, he had 1,178 yards. His yards per carry were good. The second year, he followed it up again with a 1,000-yard season. And then the year after that, he dipped a little bit. His numbers were down, but his yards per carry was still a decent, respectable 4.1, which for a power back like him, the way that he runs, that's good. And last year, before the injury, he seemed like he was tracking, things are going well. He was averaging 5.1 yards per carry, and he got injured. And so there's certainly question marks about his health, but here's why I like him. One, his biggest issue has been staying healthy and keeping his weight down. Now, right now in the contract that he has, Seattle worked it in, he has to make certain weights. And so far, to this point, he's made all of his weights. So he looks like he's in shape, he's keeping his weight down, he looks healthy. He's going to a team, Seattle, that loves physical backs. Eddie Lacy is very much like Lynch. He runs hard, he runs physical, and we know that Seattle's not afraid to use him. I believe this is year he keeps his weight down, he stays healthy, easily 1,200 yards. In fact, I wouldn't be all that surprised if he goes 1,500 yards, 12 TDs. I expect him to have a breakout year. Keep your eye on Eddie Lacy. He's my 3rd boom pick.
All right, that sounds like a nice pick. I'm excited for the season when you're wrong and I can rub it in your face. So, all right, so here is my 4th bust pick. And here's a bust pick that is kind of difficult for me to make, an Alshon Jeffrey, wide receiver for the Philadelphia Eagles. Hard pick to make because I've had him in the past couple of years, and he has been great. I just think he's unbelievably talented. But I'll tell you why I don't think he does it. Because the Philadelphia Eagles are far too conservative. There are too many players in that offense that need to get their touches. They have too many mouths to feed. First of all, they have Zach Ertz at tight end. They got Torrey Smith, Nelson Aguilar, Jordan Matthews, and now they shine Jeffrey. And Jeffrey is going to have a good year, I think. He might have an okay year. He's not going to be a bad, terrible player, but I don't think he's going to reach quite the numbers a lot of people expect him to. I don't think he'll reach 1,000 yards. But even more importantly, they just added LeGarrette Blount to that offense. The Philadelphia Eagles have made a very clear statement that they want to run the ball more. They're working on improving their defense. And I don't think that they're going to be throwing the ball quite as much as the Bears threw the ball. I'm not going to be giving Alshon Jeffrey quite as many times to catch it. Finally, Carson Wentz is a good quarterback. I think he's got a good future in the NFL. But he's maybe at tops going to throw 3,500 yards. He's not throwing for 4,000 yards. He's not throwing the ball all the time. So they just played a little bit more conservative. He may be on a good team for a good offense, but I just don't think that they need him to be as good as the Bears need him to be. So I think he's going to take a step down from what he used to do.
So now to my number 4 bust pick, right? Now, here's the thing. Before we did this, we talked about our 5 bust, our 5 boom players, but we didn't really discuss who he was going to pick, who I was going to pick. Well, then, sure enough, when we sat down here, we have a couple players that we both agree on. And that either speaks that we're both right or we're both wrong. But I think it's indications that we're kind of tracking the same way here. And so my number 4 bust is somebody you already spoke to, and that's Marshawn Lynch. Once again, I don't want to be redundant, but I believe strongly he's overhyped. People are excited. But I think, once again, if 700, 800 yards rushing, maybe 6, 7 TDs is about his max that you're going to get out of him this year. Why do I say that? Well, he was declining before he took a year off. His numbers are going down. He's on the wrong side of 30. You hear it time and time again, so many running backs that say they're going to stop Father Time, that they've been keeping themselves in great shape, that age is not a factor, and they feel better than they've ever felt. Yet time and time again, we see that there is a statistical decline that takes place for running back after the age of 30. It's undeniable, once again, at 32 years of age. And the fact that he's taken a lot of beating in his career, to me, there's no doubt that he's going to take a step backwards. Once again, he's fun to watch. Remember 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago, watch him run over linebackers, safeties, corners. I mean, that was great, but all those hits take its toll on him. Here's the other thing that I think is a concern. He's not great in the passing game. And then right now, Washington and Richard, they're going to vulture carries, and they've already shown themselves to be great in the passing game. And to make things worse, last year Oakland showed that they're not afraid to go running back by committee. They're not afraid to spread the ball around. For that reason, don't get excited, don't get hyped up, don't take Marshawn Lynch in the first, second round. I would say maybe if he's there in the 3rd or 4th round, you could begin to consider him. Once again, I would be careful to stay away from all that hype. I think he's going to be a bust this year. You're up, Christian.
Yeah. Well, that was, I put him on my list earlier. I couldn't agree more. And when you mentioned that you had picked him too, that made me feel even more secure. But now we're on to my 4th boom player, Spencer Ware, running back from Kansas City Chiefs. And he's been getting a lot of hate this offseason. A lot of people have been really dogging on him. Kareem Hunt's going to get the job, or Charcandrick West and Hunt are going to take carries away from him. Or I've heard people say he's not a good running back. And I think this is all wrong. I think this is going to be his year to break out and to show himself a starter. First of all, the idea that Spencer Ware's a bad running back is simply false. Last year, he only played in 13 games. And in those 13 games, he didn't get a lot of carries. He would get 15 to 20. Occasionally, he got 24, 25 carries. But he was never truly given the starting role. But in those 13 games, he rushed for 921 yards and received for 447 yards. In just 13 games, those are good numbers. So I think to call him a bad running back, I think it's ignorant. I think it's somebody who maybe didn't look at the stats or doesn't understand some of the things that he's done. Another thing to remember, people are really jacked about Hunt, and I understand it's it's fun to get excited about rookies and to expect them to do big things, and maybe Hunt will be unbelievable. But here's what I do know. He was just a 3rd round pick. He wasn't the Chiefs. They weren't jacked about him. They didn't trade up for him. They didn't take him in the 2nd or even the 1st round or anything like that. In fact, the Chiefs GM even said himself, they said, "We love Hunt. He's very good. He was the best of what was left." And I think that speaks volumes for why they took him. They needed to replace Jamal Charles, who left. They needed another running back. And they didn't have a chance to get Fournette, McCaffrey, or Joe Mixon, and so they kind of just took what was there. I don't think they're all that excited about him. Finally, people think that Charcandrick West could take away from him, take his job, or take his carries away. He's been brutal, only averaging 3.3 yards per carry last season. I think they are moving down. I think he's going to be 3rd on the list, and I think he's pretty much a non-factor this year. So I don't know about you, but Spencer Ware, boom this year.
I like Spencer Ware. I think he'll be a good this year, and we know that Kansas City likes to run the ball. Getting rid of Jamal Charles speaks volumes. I think this is his year. He's got to go out. He's got to prove it, but I think he's going to do. I think he's going to do it this year. I think he's going to become their guy. So I like Ware also. So it's on to my 4th boom pick. Well, my 4th boom pick is Leonard Fournette. Leonard Fournette, I like this guy. Now, if you look at Jacksonville, they're a fairly young franchise, and yet in their brief history, they've had some good running backs. And of course, we think about Maurice Jones-Drew, but another one. I don't know if you've heard of him, Christian, but Fred Taylor. Fred Taylor back in the day. Those were some great backs. I love Fred Taylor. Drew was a great back, and I think they may have another here in Leonard Fournette. In fact, I would say that he would be this year's, or a poor man's, Ezekiel Elliott. He was successful in college, and a lot of success as far as how he's going to be as a rookie here in the NFL comes down to opportunity. I think he has all the opportunity to be successful. They don't have any running backs there, and yet he's surrounded with talented players. You can't stack the box because you have Allen Robinson and other wide receivers. So I think he's in a great position to be successful. He's 6 foot, 240 pounds. He's a powerful runner. He's strong. He runs hard. He's got these hard cuts that he makes. And I would say once again that he might be this year's Ezekiel Elliott. The only thing I would say, the only hesitation I would have there before I declare him this year's Ezekiel Elliott, the one thing that Ezekiel Elliott had going for him that maybe he's missing is the offensive line. Dallas' offensive line, many people would say, is the number one offensive line in football. And right now, Jacksonville's O-line ranks somewhere between 25 to 30. But once again, he's going to have a good year. I think he's a safe pick. I think he's a boom. Leonard Fournette.
All right, I guess we'll see how that goes this season. Honestly, don't agree with you, so I guess we'll see which one's right. I just don't trust that team in general, but yeah, I guess hopefully you'll be right. Maybe he can make something big. He'll be the next big guy. But
well, I'll tell you what, you can let him slip to me, and I'll be happy to take him from you.
Yeah, no, I'll be happy to have you starting him against me, so you go ahead and do that. All right, so here's my fifth and final bust. I'm going to get a lot of hate for this one, but Keenan Allen, wide receiver of the LA Chargers. I just don't trust the guy. And maybe I'm just biased by past experiences, but he has played 4 seasons in the NFL. Not once has he played more than 13 games. He has been injured every year, and I think, well, you know the phrase. We've all heard it before. The definition of insanity is to do the same thing and expect different results. And I think that's exactly what it would be to take Keenan Allen. I think it's insanity to expect that he's going to make it this season without getting injured. I think is rather foolish. Now, once again, if he can be your last pick, if he can be a 10th rounder or late in your draft, why not give him a shot? But if you're going to be taking him where he's ranked or where his current ADP is, I think that's extremely foolish. Another thing is, he doesn't need to get injured for season. He doesn't need to even miss half the year. If he misses just a couple of games or plays a couple of games half healthy or struggles a little bit due to any health concerns, guys are going to quickly snatch up his role and take his stats. They've been adding tons of new talent and retain talent that they had. They just added Mike Williams, and they still have Travis Benjamin, Tyrell Williams, Dontrell Inman, Antonio Gates, and Hunter Henry. So this is a guy I would avoid extremely due to health concerns and other talent on the team that will very quickly take his role. Once again, avoid Keenan Allen.
Keenan Allen, huh?
Yeah.
Well, I have to say, that's one. Well, I'll disagree with you on this. Now, I'll say this. I think he's very talented. When he's been on the field, he produces. If you project his stats out over a 16-game season, this guy would be top 5. I will agree with you on this one point. In order to produce, you got to be on the field. And you're right, up to this point, he's had a hard time staying healthy. He's had some pretty serious injuries. But I'm not sure that, I'm going to let him slip too far, because I think he's a guy that if he stays on the field could become an all-pro player. And so once again, I like Keenan Allen. I guess it comes down to, will he be healthy this year? And so I guess we'll see on that one.
Yeah.
So my fifth bust player is Tyreek Hill. Now, I had him last year when he was getting hot. He was rolling out. I drafted him. I used him. I kept him for a while. In fact, he really helped me get through some rough patches there when I had some injuries. But what I also did last year is when he peaked and he was hyped, I traded him away. And here's why I did it, and it's also the reason why I think he'll be a bust this year. He's explosive, he's fun to watch, but he's a gadget player. And here's what I mean by that. Which one is he? Well, how would you qualify him? Is he a wide receiver? Is he a running back? Is he a kick returner? And what you typically see in the NFL, especially in terms of fantasy football, is gadget players never reach elite status. Oftentimes they'll come on, they're new, they bring a gadget to the game, maybe defenses don't quite plan for him, but eventually they figure him out, they make adjustments, and their stats go away. Another thing that concerns me next year is in order for him to become a great player, he's going to have to settle into that wide receiver role. Now last year, as a wide receiver, with his speed, you would think the one thing he would excel in was his yards after the catch. You would think that, it would be somewhere to 15 to 20, that's where you see people like Deshaun Jackson at. Well, last year, with all of his speed, his yards per carry were at 9.7. Once again, not a great yards after the catch. He makes me think of a guy named Eric Metcalf back in the day. Great dual threat, great multi-tool player, but not a great fantasy player. He lacks the traits to become a #1 wide receiver, and for that reason, I think he's a bust. I think he's going to be overhyped. People will take him too early. Stay away from Tyreek Hill this year.
Yeah, I exactly agree with you. And you mentioned his name earlier. I think you really said it right when you said he's a jack of all trades and a master of none. I just don't think he's going to be a good enough wide receiver. Sadly, he doesn't get you points for kick returns in most leagues. Otherwise, he might have a lot more value.
You know another thing I think that hurts him too, and this is nothing he can do about it, but he plays for Kansas City. And Kansas City is the Bermuda Triangle for wide receivers. They went almost a year and a half without one wide receiver catching a touchdown pass. So even if he was a great wideout, he's in the wrong system.
Yeah, and that's something we've been talking about all day. You can have all the talent in the world, but wrong team, it's not going to matter. So you got to be in the right system. Here's my final boom. This is my fifth and final boom and my final player of this podcast. Stefon Diggs, huge boom this season. Wide receiver for the Minnesota Vikings. I'm excited I'm a Minnesota guy. It's a little bit of a home pick, but I think that I can honestly say that he is a boom player without my bias coming into play. I think that I looked at this and honestly the stats back this up. Last year in just 13 games, he got 111 targets, 84 receptions, 903 yards, and 3 touchdowns. In just 13 games. But even more importantly than that, let's remember that he got injured in week 4. And after that, he just wasn't the same. Sam Bradford even said that, I'm pretty sure exactly said that, he said that Stefon Diggs just wasn't the same after week 4, mentioning how he was just a little bit slower after his groin injury. He wasn't cutting as fast. He wasn't playing to the level we know he can. Now he's had a whole offseason to heal. He's going to play more games. He's going to play those games with be more quality due to better health. I think he's going to explode into the 12, 13, maybe even 1,400 receiving yards range, and even the touchdowns. Another thing to remember is I was very disappointed to see a lot of places had him ranked lower than I was seeing, like way lower than I was ever going to expect, like into the 30s. I saw one place ranked him outside of the top 32. He's a #1 wide receiver. I expect him to get 160 targets this year, and I'm really excited about it. I don't know how people keep kind of hating on him, but I think you can look for him to have a very explosive year.
So Stefon Diggs, like you, I'm a Vikings fan. I bleed purple. One of the things to be successful as a fantasy football owner is you need to really put aside your biases, your feelings, your emotions. You need to look at the numbers. You need to push aside all those biases. Sometimes in my attempt to do that, I actually overcompensate. Sometimes I become overly critical of Vikings players in terms of fantasy. With all that said, putting my bias aside, looking at my prejudice, whatever you want to call it, I think he's the real deal. I think he's a dominant #1 receiver. I think this year he breaks 1,000 yards. I think you have a future possible all-pro player there. I love Stefon Diggs. I do. I think he's going to be a great player this year. Nice pick. So that comes to me, right? My fifth and final boom player, and it's the guy that you mentioned earlier. Like you, I got a crush on this guy, and it's Mike Gillislee. I love him, and I love him for a lot of reasons. First of all, I want to take you back a while. Now, this is a little bit before your time, but when's the last time there was a New England running back that you could truly trust to not only, get the bulk of the carries, but to produce, to have big numbers? And when I think back, the one that comes to mind for me is Corey Dillon. And I think this could be the modern day Corey Dillon for New England. The first time that there's a back there that's not only going to play, get the carries, but be dominant. I love Mike Gillislee. Last 2 years, 5.7 yards per carry. Here's what I think is compelling. Say what you want about New England, love or hate them, they know what they're doing. They know how to win, they're successful. Year after year, they pick guys that we overlook, they find a ways to be successful. Oftentimes what they do is they'll take a guy out of the scrap heap, a wide receiver, or somebody maybe that was cut, or was a free agent, people that we weren't think are big acquisitions. Rarely are they aggressive in going after a guy like they did with Mike Gillislee. When they made the offer sheet, it made a huge statement. It speaks volumes of the confidence they have in him. He's big, he runs hard, he's elusive. I think he's going to be great this year. I love the guy. Now, once again, you're going to have to watch and see how things develop in camp. You're going to have to see the tendencies. I know Bill Belichick, it's hard sometimes to rely on him, but I do like the guy. I think he's going to be a steal. Here's what I would say, though. Be careful where you take him. What's going to make him successful is your ability to let him fall in the draft far enough where you can load up on your bench, but not too far where you miss out on that sleeper pick. Once again, I like Mike Gillislee. So before we wrap this up here, is there anything, Christian, you want to add?
There was one more thing that I wanted to add to Mike Gillislee, and that's The only bad thing that I've heard about in this offseason is fear that it may take him a couple of games into the season, 2, 3, maybe even 4 games to solidify that starting job. Let's not forget that Blount is leaving behind basically 300 carries and 18 touchdowns. That's a lot. Even if Dion Lewis takes 3 touchdowns, and who's another guy that might possibly take 3 touchdowns?
Looking at White, possibly.
White, I was thinking of, yeah.
Rex Burkhead.
Rex Burkhead. Even if each of those 3 players took 3 touchdowns away, how many? I mean, we're still looking at 9 touchdowns he could get. I mean, even if he's not the solid number 1 guy off the start, I think we can still expect some promising numbers from him as he works into that role and then takes over all of the carries. But I definitely think by midway through the year, it'll be his job solely.
Solid. Well, here's a way that we'll find out, I guess. We're making some prediction here. We'll have to see if we can put our money where our mouth is, and I guess we'll look back at the end of the year. Maybe what we can do when this year's over is go back and take a look at how we did in our picks, and we'll do that. Here's what we want you to do. Thanks for listening. We want you to check us out on Facebook. Check us out on web. Once again, it's Fantasy Football Profits with an S, fantasyfootballprofits.com. We love your feedback, ideas, thoughts you may have, things you'd like to hear, questions, whatever it is. We want to hear from you guys once again. And here's the other thing you can do for us, and this is vitally important. Like us on Facebook, like our videos, subscribe to us, and get the word out so we can begin to grow our site. Thank you once again. We appreciate the time. God bless.